guys, what's up? It's Darkmech here, and I have a special treat for you all today. Joining me on the channel this evening, I have Meod and Dorfie from the guild Honestly, who we just saw take it all the way to the global final in the Mythic Dungeon Invitational. Gentlemen, welcome. How are we this evening?
Good, man.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me. Now, if you missed the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, it was a Mythic Plus competition which saw 30 teams enter it, go through regional qualifying rounds, and then face off in a global final series where there was 8 teams entered and 1 team came out on top. There was $100,000 in total prize money up for grabs, and the guys that I'm fortunate enough to be speaking with this evening made it all the way to that global final in the top 2 teams. So the idea behind today is to get a player perspective into what it was like to compete in the MDI, what kind of work and preparation went into making it all the way through the regionals and to that global final, and just to get to know the players. So before we start chatting, or more to the point, me throwing questions at you, do you guys just want to introduce yourselves for people that might not be familiar with you guys? What class or classes you play, how long you've been playing the game for, rating with Honestly, and anything else you might want to throw in?
Sure. So my name's Meod. I main a balanced druid in Honestly with the game Guildmaster Dorfie. My main ults are Shadow Priest and Frost Mage this expansion, and I've been playing since vanilla, but I started raiding around Wrath of the Lich King. I joined in Blackrock Foundry to raid under Dorfie.
Yeah, I'm Dorfie. Also been playing since vanilla. Played a priest all the way up to this expansion, but then swapped to druid, and I'm loving it. And yeah, I don't know how long Honestly has been going for now, but it's been a few expansions and been guildmaster of that guild since it started.
Awesome. Well, a good introduction to you guys anyway. So I think this leads pretty well into my first question. So I think it was a question I was certainly wondering, and I think a lot of people watching were, how long in preparation did you guys actually put into this? How many hours sort of went into preparing for the MDI? Like, how many group compositions did you try out? Different trash pool strategies, where the stealth, you guys certainly looked like sort of one of the most practiced and solid teams we saw through the competitions. Straight away, I think of Cathedral of Eternal Night and Arcway. Was this just the way that you'd already been doing those dungeons, or did you have to put a lot of time into this?
Well, we have, as a hardcore guild, we have a lot of ults and that sort of stuff, and so we're pretty familiar with all these dungeons. Heading into every dungeon, we have a pretty solid idea of what we already wanted to do. But that said, there was a lot of work put into perfecting some of these big pulls. I think the biggest example was the first pull of Vault of the Wardens, which was the mini boss and about 3 packs of trash. We must have burned about 30 to 40 keys in a couple hours, and just getting that down without having an AoE grip, and it also being sanguine with the mini boss leaping around, that sort of stuff. But as far as raw time for the whole thing, my tournament druid ended up with about 60 hours / played, and I'd put 10 hours of that down to the tournament games and idling, so about 50 hours across regionals and globals, I'd say.
That is insane. But as I said, it certainly showed. I think the Warlock strat in Cathedral of Eternal Night, like, that was, I think that freaked everyone out. That was really fucking cool.
In terms of just playing with different comps as well, we sort of like had a little try on the Warrior for a bit instead of the Warlock, and even double Warrior instead of the Moonkin, just because everyone seemed to be playing Warriors. But we found it to be pretty effective, but we just didn't have the time to become as good as that comp as our main one, so we just ended up sticking with it.
Yeah, for sure. So I was lucky enough to get a hold of some Tournament Realm footage, but sort of rather than me talking about sort of what I've seen over there, can you guys explain what the process is like after you qualify? Did you get a list of dungeons off Blizzard to tell you what fixes and dungeons would feature in prelim rounds and semis and finals? What was the Tournament Realm like, re-obtaining gear and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so after we did the Proving Grounds in the 2-week period on live servers, we all received emails confirming we'd qualified about a month or 2 later. And in that email, there was a player handbook with a bunch of information, including, tournament formatting, map pools, and player guidelines. There was a link to an APAC-only Discord for direct communication between game masters, tournament admins, and ourselves, and other players. And they also sent us a new account to use, a different email, different BattleNet, and that account was specifically flagged for tournament use.
What was the sort of the vendor setup over there in regards to getting all your gear and things like that?
It's kind of just like private realm, honestly. Just a bunch of vendors in Dalaran selling anything you could need. Initially, though, there was a lot of stuff missing, like gems and enchants and all that, but the admin's really good. You just send them an email, and a few days later, it's all there.
Awesome.
I think the only one downside in the long run that they should probably look at for the next tournament was actually getting the keys. The way they had it set up was each of their different affix combinations just rotated out daily. So if you were looking to practice a certain round or a certain set of affixes, then you could be waiting up to 4 days on the roll around. So
okay, so it was just like a keystone, you clicked on it and you got a random generated, or you got in a set of affixes that was on that day sort of thing, and they just kept rotating.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
like live how it rotates every week, but it was rotating every day. But shout out to one of the admins who he stayed up all night, and the admins had like a I don't know, command to rotate the affixes, because he just rotated them for us every 10 minutes and let us spam by keys. So if he didn't do that, we would have been far less prepared for the finals.
So we had 2 highly ranking Oceanic teams in the MDI, you guys obviously being Honestly and Ego or Free Marcy. Free Marcy kind of appeared to come back from nowhere in the qualifiers. I know I personally, in all my experiences in MDI caller, none. I had completely written them off. But did you guys ever think there was sort of a chance that there would be an all-Oceanic global final, or were you sort of on the, I think the majority of people thinking that the EU team was going to be sort of the big hurdle to get over?
Yeah, well, both us and Free Marzi weren't really sure how far we would get. And the general sentiment from the community was that the EU would be too strong and, no one else should have even got invited, all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I felt both teams had something to prove heading into globals, but specifically against the EU team, with one EU team being on each side of the bracket. But Free Marzi and us in the APAC Discord I mentioned earlier, we'd play off each other a lot and congratulate each other for taking games off your opponents and stuff. Like, we've been friends with these guys on or off for, personally about 8 years. Like, there's not that much of it's a friendly rivalry, definitely a friendly rivalry. We're all mates, really, at the end of the day.
I was just about to ask that. I kind of assumed there would have been some kind of Oceanic rivalry between, Honestly and Ego as raiding guilds, and I kind of wondered if there was friendly bants all the way through this, or if it got pretty serious.
No, it was definitely friendly bants. Even at the very end, when we knew it was us versus Free Marzi, we're just saying, we're just so happy that we'd be versing each other, because showing the world that APAC is a very, very fierce competitor in dungeons. In raids, maybe we don't have the time or the 20-man rosters or whatever to support competing like that. Actually having the numbers to compete in dungeons, we could definitely show up for that, and we definitely did. Both teams. It was really good. Yeah,
100%, absolutely. So I guess we've spoken a little bit about this already, but from a player perspective, what would you guys like to see change for the next MDI? I know you guys had to play at some pretty horrid times. I think that was the final like midnight to 8 or nearly 9 a.m. I know generally the game does rotate around America and EU, but we ended up having an all-Oceanic final, and all of us had to pull a fucking all-nighter to end up watching it. So sort of that side of things. The bugs obviously would have been a real pain in the ass too, that led to restarts and things like that. Like, what would you guys like to see done differently next time?
I'm not too fussed about the play times. Like, it's a global tournament. Someone's gonna get the short end of the stick, and at the end of the day, as long as it's on a weekend, and it was fortunate it was a public holiday on Monday to help out there as well for the Aussies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the next MDR specifically, I don't know if single elimination was the right way to do it. I think I'd rather see like a pool stages, or maybe a losers bracket. And, you can look to other esports like Dota or League who do pools or something, and they actually stream multiple games at once. You know, like, so if your production crew, if Blizzard want to go down that route, you know, they can do that, and there's so much to learn just from what the other games have already worked out. But something also was, I think maybe you could even look at the key difficulty going up as the tournament goes on. You know, sure, at the start, at the early regionals, there are teams who that 17 key was their limit, really, without starting to deplete some dungeons. But I think when you start, for an example, getting towards the global semis, you know, maybe we're moving through these dungeons a bit quick and you could bump it a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see. Was it a long time to play, though, like in terms of how long, you know, the regional went from when you played your first prelim to having to play that final? Was it kind of a long time to wait around in between games, or were you guys able to just sort of log off, set an alarm and come back, or did you kind of have to hang around for that whole sort of 8-9 hours sort of thing?
Well, we'd made our sleep schedule to be awake for the whole thing. So, and you know, during the finals, there was just too much excitement to really get much sleep anyway. I think most of us were getting about 5 to 6 hours sleep.
It was all spaced out pretty well, though. Like, our regional was 2 weeks before the global finals, and then day one we just had to play one game, quarterfinals, and then day two was semi-finals.
I think I don't know.
There weren't really any long days. It was just early starts.
Yeah, and what I would want to see maybe is a gap between the semis and grand finals, because I don't know, the longer you let teams prepare for maps, the higher quality games you're going to see. Like, you know, you watch the top 8 teams do that very first Vault of the Wardens. You know, all these teams are putting up these great times. I think out of the top 8 teams, I think 7 of them 3-chested as Vault of the Wardens, right? And then you start moving to that game 2, that game 3, into the semis, and the quality of the runs are starting to fall back to that +2 time, maybe even just +1 timing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind maybe the starting map being randomized and teams told just before they play. Definitely. So then you're forced to prepare all 5 maps instead of just putting 90% of your practice time into that one map.
Yeah, and I think from a viewership as well.
Yeah, it would reward the teams that are, you know, more
and it's not that interesting to watch 8 teams all run Vault of the Wardens, in my opinion. But
I was going to say that was something that came up in the Twitch chat, and even just WoW forums and things like that. People got sick of watching the same map sort of over and over and over.
Definitely agree.
How did you guys feel about the setup for sort of RNG in some of the dungeons? So in the final Upper Karazhan, the Medivh phase, you know, both teams had the exact same phases with the birds. I don't know if that was RNG or just pure luck, but both teams got the same phase. And then you move to Archway, where both teams get ported to different rooms. Did you think that had much of an impact, and it should be the exact same for both teams in the dungeon, or is that sort of RNG spice, let's call it, in an esports setting like this, okay?
No, I just think it should be the same.
Yeah,
I never really went back and checked what the difference in those Archway routes was. But yeah, just anything, no matter how small or how big, if it can be the same, then just make it the same.
Yep.
Yeah, we saw the Medivh phases were synced up, and the prisoners on the second boss fight of Vault of the Wardens were synced up, unless you're in different regions. And I think that might have just been a little bit an oversight. And also, you know, the Archway rooms, I think that was just an accident. Maybe they just forgot that was a factor.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, I don't know for certain, but I think I recall one of the casters saying, you know, one of the rooms is a shorter route to get back to the boss and things like that. So there's obviously fuck all we can do about it now, but I just wondered sort of how you guys felt about having that. But if they set up the other ones, then this must have just been an oversight that was unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely firmly against RNG in that sort of setting.
Yeah. Talk to me about the effect the restart had on you guys in Halls of Valor, if it had any effect at all. I'm kind of playing assumption here, but you know, you were 2 up going into that final. You'd won the first 2 dungeons in what looked to be a really comfortable fashion. You'd started well in Hov. Free Marcy had their deaths they couldn't release, and it led to a dungeon reset. Did that kind of throw you off rhythm, or it wasn't an issue being sort of near the start of the dungeon?
No, I'd say as we were playing, we didn't really think twice about it. It's just we went too far into the dungeon, and I think the admin just typed in chat, he's like, we've got an issue, we need a restart, and we just got ported back. So, you know, instead of getting all tilted about it. We were just like, all right, don't worry about it. Just play the same as we just did, because we didn't know like what was happening to Free Marzi at the time.
Yeah.
So, like we had no idea what was actually going on until after the tournament when we went back through the VODs. So at the time, all we could really do was just, try to repeat the perfect start that we had.
Yeah, fair call. Now, I don't mean this to sound like esports espionage, but, were you guys watching the stream at all, or did you have someone sort of keeping an eye on the stream for you and telling you where other teams were to sort of let you know if you needed to pick it up or take riskier sort of pulls, or if you were in front by a long margin where you could just kind of settle and keep progressing? Or was this very much you guys just had your own strat and it was all about just executing sort of your own way through the dungeon and not worrying about what anyone else was doing?
No, we had a sixth person in our voice comms at all times, but we asked him to not mention anything unless they had a full team lap, or if we explicitly asked, where are they at, what's going on, are we ahead or behind, and we would always react to the information we got. Whether that was speed up, like a Blackrock hold map where we pulled everything to the last boss, or it was like a slow down, like in Seat of the Triumvirate, where we were just taking packs one at a time because we could afford to. We're very, very reactionary with a sixth person was how we did it.
I did figure there would be something like that, but I was just really curious about that one for myself. One that's I was really interested in is talk to me about swapping in the Protection Warrior for Seat and Upper. So I certainly enjoyed through the MDI that we managed to see every tank represented. Prot Warrior was obviously on the lower side of things, with Guardian and DK being the largest, just due to obviously how well both tanks are designed for 5-man content. With the removal of MOU, Druids became, loads weaker against magic damage. Was the Prot Warrior just, for a similar sort of output in damage with Ignore Pain for magic damage, or what was the real reason for bringing in the Prot Warrior on two sort of fairly magic-heavy dungeons?
Prot Warrior, for Upper, we stole that strat off Wheezing Heartsies. So we saw them play in the EU qualifiers, they ran Prot Warrior. Everyone was like, what are they doing? And then you see them get to Shade and Medivh and they just delete the boss in less than a minute. Shame they proc Flame Reef though, but yeah. So for Upper, Prot Warrior, you saw there is definitely just very strong for Shade and Medivh, strong for the last boss. You can reflect his dot as well. So it saves you a lot of time in on the bosses. So yeah, we practiced it a bit, we liked it, we stuck with it. Pumps is able to play any tank class to its full potential, so we had no worries there.
And what about from the Seat side of things?
For Seat, we had an hour to practice that dungeon after winning the semis, and prior to that, I'd never zoned into it. I think a few other people on the team had never zoned into it. So we basically just had an hour to learn it as best we could. So Pumps went in there and his Druid just kept getting deleted by the first trash pack. So we're like, alright, let's give Warrior a try. So we swapped to Warrior, and not really sure why, but he does this thing where he just spams Intervene on our rogue and chain stuns the trash, and he just seemed to be surviving a lot better. So we just went with that, tried to clear the dungeon, and yeah,
something else that
seemed to work out
was intercepting an ally to stun everything around you was really, really important for the third boss for controlling the tentacles. I don't know if you've done it yourself, but the tentacles can stack their dot on members, and with 2 or 3, they apply healing debuff and huge damage. So being able to shut them down reliably, even though we had never killed the third boss in our practice, Pumps was very confident in going the Warrior, and sure enough, we one-shot it the first time we got there, which was in the grand final.
Awesome. Well, I certainly learned something new there, and it kind of leads perfectly into my next question, which was going to be, did you actually get to practice Seat, or was it kind of a late-minute inclusion in the final series? Or
I mean, it only appears in the finals, so you don't want to waste any practice time practicing a map like you're only ever going to play if you make the finals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it looked like a really fucking nasty dungeon at 17 plus with explosive and teaming. Like it for both teams, it looked like a fucking struggle sort of thing.
Yeah, so we had an hour to practice it and sort of just worked out what we could. I don't think Free Marzi did any practice on it, which is probably why we won the first round. Any amount of practice versus no practice is pretty big advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to finish sort of up, guys, is there any advice you would have for teams or players looking to compete in the next MDI, sort of, you know, having gone through it yourself now? Just maybe advice for new teams looking to compete next year?
I think the advice I would give would be, you know, you've already seen what's considered the meta routes through all these dungeons, with all these tournament teams. And so it's just about practicing and getting it down. Something that's so important is not tilting. You know, when a run starts to go bad, you know, even if you're just practicing whatever, you just got to push through the key. You know, there's so much to learn. You don't have to do a perfect key every single time. And I think through practice, Dorfie, we very rarely had perfect keys. And it wasn't only until we actually were doing the tournament run where it really just came together.
You just need to find 4 people you enjoy playing with and you communicate well with. It's hard to, you know, a lot of communication and teamwork goes into pulling off the runs perfectly. No, yeah, it's like a guild, but smaller group. You really need to trust the people you're playing with, I think, and enjoy playing. Because otherwise, you know, 10-hour practice sessions with people you don't like, nothing's going to get done properly.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, guys. It's certainly given me a far greater insight into what it was like to play in the tournament, and just getting to know you guys as well. So thanks very much for coming on and having a chat with me, and hopefully we can do it again next year and you guys go one better.
Yeah, we hope so too, man. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, guys. So there you have it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. It was great to get Meod and Dorfie on here and chat about their player experiences through the tournament. One thing Meod and I were talking about after the interview that we completely forgot to actually include in here, which is really relevant and I think a huge point. It's one of the things Meod would also like to see changed in the next Mythic Dungeon Invitational, and that's to see the tournament realms opened up for proving grounds to everybody. Now, whether there's a $10 entry fee or something like that per team entered, and that's another way Blizzard can make even more money sort of out of this, or what they do, I don't really care, but I think it would have a lot of merit in opening up the tournament realms for proving grounds. It would give everyone the exact same starting point, everyone's the same item level, everyone's artifacts are the same. It doesn't matter if you're a mythic raider or not, it purely then just comes down to your skill and composition and strategies. They could throw something in like completing 3 dungeons in time on the tournament realm will give you a title on live servers. It would just open up Mythic Dungeon, the Mythic Dungeon Invitational to so many more people. It would really broaden the spectrum for the Mythic Plus sort of interest-wise. And I think it's got a lot of merit to it, this suggestion. So hopefully someone at Blizzard gets that fed back to them. And they do look at the next proving grounds in opening up the tournament realms and allowing, you know, people that may be in heroic guilds or normal guilds the same advantage to gain access to this as people in mythic guilds. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for checking out the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. See you guys.